I call this meeting of the Northwest Suburbs Cable Communications Commission to order. We have looked at the roll, and we have a quorum here. The next item on the agenda is approval of the actual agenda. You have the agenda before you. Is there a motion to approve what the agenda is today? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We're being asked to approve minutes, acknowledge receipt of other minutes, and approve the treasurer's report. So anybody can withdraw anything from the consent agenda for separate action or discussion. Is there anyone that wants to withdraw anything from the consent agenda? Is there anyone that wants to move that we approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. It's 7:31, and we're on to number 4, action items, insurance liability waiver. What is that about?
Mr. Chair and Commission, the insurance liability waiver is a housekeeping item that we tackle each May. Staff recommends that we vote to not waive the monetary limits on municipal tort liability.
Does anybody have any discussion about what that means? Or any questions? Is there a motion to approve the recommendation? Is there a second? Okay, so that's at page 25 of our materials, and follows on pages 26 and 27. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. Okay, next item is going to take a little bit longer, presentation and asking for approval of the strategic plan.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commission, thank you so much, everyone, for being here today for this important agenda item. Just to remind you a little bit about how we got to this point, and all right, we've got the projector up. Thanks, guys. In the fall, the executive committee asked for some long-range planning and some strategic planning, specifically looking at it through the lens of how do we adjust to our declining revenue. And so since the end of the year and the beginning of the year, we've been working with Al Anka from Aurora Consulting, who's been a fantastic partner in this very difficult process. We kind of presented and laid out what our process would be at the February meeting. As many of you know, we sat down and spoke with just about everyone in this room for 30 minutes to, sometimes those meetings went on to 2 hours, all of our stakeholders, to ask questions about CCX Media. And this was a range of questions. Thank you so much for participating. It gave us a lot of really good information. Staff members sat with that information. We dug through it. We compared it to what we know about how our organization runs. And we worked together to put together this strategic plan that's before you today. And so Al is going to talk about the first part, the process, the value, and the key messages, and then I will jump in to talk about the strategic goals and actions. Then we will have a little bit of facilitated discussion before we have our business of discussion from Chair Flanagan. So with that said, we'll turn it over to you, Al.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Shannon already shared the process that I was going to share, and so I think we'll just go right into the report. The slides that you see up here are just a copy paste from the report, and in the bottom right-hand corner it says which page that information is on, and so you can follow along in your packet if you wish to. So thank you all for participating in the survey and discussion. The team leads from CCX Media hosted and facilitated those discussions. And one of the important questions that we asked you to think about and write about is up here on the screen. What's unique or special about CCX Media and its service to your city and residents? And we really wanted to start the report with this and start our presentation with this information, because these are the themes that you yourselves shared in this survey. And so we looked at it. We had a workshop with the team leads to create these themes, to look at the survey data, and discuss them. And so this is a really beautiful picture of the importance and essential nature of CCX Media. And so we wanted to start this as kind of a little mission moment before we start talking about some of the harder topics in this report. So I'm just going to read each one. What's unique or special about CCX Media and its service to your city and residents? First and foremost, this is hyper-local media. CCX Media provides unparalleled, hyper-local city news and sports coverage, capturing the unique stories and spirit of the northwest suburbs that mainstream media overlooks. There's nobody else doing this, right? CCX Media has skilled professionals. You've been delivering trusted local content for over 40 years with professional, reliable coverage produced by a team of experts. CCX Media has trusting relationships. You've built long-term relationships with cities, schools, community members, and the greater public. And again, some of that is 40 years old. CCX promotes civic engagement and understanding through transparency and unbiased information. You're providing public transparency. CCX Media is an established platform. You're focused every day on providing cities and residents an established platform to share stories and amplify their reach. And then finally, CCX Media is a representation of city cost sharing. You're built to serve the cities and residents through cost sharing of services and resources. There's a lot of beautiful quotes in the report. I just pulled one out for this presentation from Adam Bell. Replacing the access to city information beyond what the city can do would be incredibly difficult. Public transparency is a top priority for the city, and CCX helps provide that. So this is the reason CCX Media is around. That's your kind of key messages about why you're special and unique. So I'm going to do one more piece and then hand it over to Shannon. The first part of the report has kind of a description of what's the big picture here, right? What are we working with? Why are we strategic planning? And so these are some of the key messages that we wanted to convey to this body, and also that you can convey as advocates for CCX Media after you leave this meeting and are talking to other people about what's going on. So the first key message, CCX Media is in an existential financial crisis, one that all PEG channels are experiencing. And this is related to the reason you wanted to do strategic planning, declining cable revenue, right? That money is going away. We're trying to get another way to get that back, but that is not for sure, right? The next one, CCX money will run out of money in mid-2028 unless we act. So the status quo, if we keep spending what we're spending, don't make any changes, we will run through all of our reserves, and that will happen quickly, right? A substantial budget cut in the 2026 budget, the next budget, can buy CCX more time to make changes, right? So if we're thinking, hey, we don't make any changes, we're going to be out of money in 2028, making a cut now can basically increase our reserves because we're spending less and give us more time so that we can try to either make more money or decide on more cuts. New revenue sources are necessary to replace cable fees. Cable fees are going away, people are cutting the cord. They're not going to go back up. And so that is our primary revenue source. That's like 95% of the money that we have. And so in order to sustain, we have to replace that with other revenue. CCX Media will be different. This is a huge change for CCX Media. We are proposing in the plan some goals and some fallback goals that can describe how CCX Media will be different. But this is the work of the next few years, is to figure out, we have to change, how is that? And then finally, stakeholder advocacy is important. Telling the story of who CCX Media is, why it's important, why it's unique and special, talking to the cities especially, and making sure to spread the word that, hey, this is something that's really important for our community. It's something that we haven't had to think about a lot because it's always been paid for, but now we're going to have to start thinking about it more and participating in CCX Media's future. So you all are stakeholders, and I hope this report helps you, gives you some material to be advocates out in the community and in the cities. So with that, let's move to the plan.
Sure. Strategic goals are up next, and when I talked about this with staff, I think it's easily explained. It's not a series of goals that are separate and different, and they pertain to different parts of what we do. It's really a series of if-then scenarios. If we can't accomplish the initial goal and reach sustainability, then we fall back to the first fallback goal. If we can't reach it with that goal, then we fall back with the next goal. If we can't reach it at that point, then we look into our contingency plan. So we will put all of our efforts into this first initial goal, which is providing city meeting services and reducing other departments. And this is moving toward a structure where cities would pay for city meeting coverage at cost. So the city service department of what we do, that would become sustainable as we continue to lose revenue. We would then make cuts to the remaining departments. This would not be a cut necessarily to save us, but just to give us a little more runway to make the changes that we need to make as we start developing revenue streams. I think previously we've always looked at revenue streams to supplement our income. We really need to look at it in terms of replacing our income. And so residents would obviously receive a reduced amount of local sports, news, and or create less civic engagement. Cities would receive their city meeting coverage and still get some benefit of CCX coverage beyond city meetings through city stories and definitely ad hoc services. The board and commission would continue to help advocate for funding from the cities and participate in other revenue-raising efforts. Staff would be cut from, we have 25 full-time now, to about 10 to 15 full-time. If we cannot keep 12 months of revenue in the bank from this and become sustainable, we fall back to fallback goal number 1, which is providing city meeting services and closing some departments. So we would actually be working to make each department sustainable. If we can't make it sustainable, if we can't afford it, we would have to cut it. Cities would pay for city meeting coverage at cost, so that department would become sustainable. We look at closing news and or sports, and we continue developing revenue streams for remaining departments. So obviously this would have huge impact because people know us for our news and sports. We would have less civic engagement, and then staff would be cut from any closed departments. If we cannot achieve fallback goal number 1, we go to fallback goal number 2, which is primarily provide city meeting services. This somewhat changes who we are, but we are still fulfilling our mission. We would reduce in size just to prioritize city meeting coverage. We would be sustainable because the cities are paying for their city services. We are just cost sharing and working at it together. Cities would benefit because they don't have to coordinate with an outside source. They don't have to bring that cost in-house. And then it also gives us the option, we're still an organization. We could add back additional departments if funding becomes available in the future. Obviously, the implications of this, residents would lose a 40-year-old Emmy Award-winning local news source. That's hard to think about. Cities would maintain the benefits of their established and efficient city meeting coverage. We've done that well, and that could continue. And then the board and commission would continue to help advocate for funding from the cities, negotiating future cable franchising, adjusting bylaws as needed, and dissolving the board if and when it's redundant. Staff would be cut down from 25 full-time to about 2 to 3 full-time staff, and at this point we'd really have to look at, does it make sense to keep a building or to fall back and operate perhaps in one of your city halls or something like that, which is what some organizations have done. If this does not work, then we move, and the cities do not want to pay for city meeting coverage, we move to a plan where we would try to sunset CCX Media gracefully before we are in a situation of crisis. Residents would obviously lose an organization that's been delivering content and information for 40 years. Cities would have to move their city meeting coverage in-house or find another provider. And then the board and commission would work together for dissolution, and staff would be laid off. So this is kind of the final goal that we hope we don't ever get to. So, reason why we're not going to get to those is we're going to work on these strategic actions, and so that's the next slide. So there are 5 different actions that we're going to put in place if this is passed to try to meet that first initial goal. The first and the one at the top of the list is cutting the budget. We estimate that would be about 33%. That would balance the budget for 2026. We knew when we passed the budget, or when we presented the budget last fall, that we would have to cut the budget this next year because we could not keep going into reserves at the rate that we are this year. This would extend our cash flow and would also give us the runway that we need to try to ramp up new revenue, which is next. We've already been working with our investments to get the most we can out of those, determine what feasible services and content that we can do with a reduced staff. Obviously, we can't produce the same amount of volume that we do now. Like, that just kind of goes without saying. We would have to cut back. And then work harder to identify the cost of city meeting and promotional services. Generating new revenue would have to go hand in hand. Right now, our thought is we would try to remove city grants in the 2026 budget. This would add about $300,000 back to our budget, and then work with cities to include CCX in their budgets by the year 2027. And of course, investigate other impactful revenue generating options. And on this next slide is this grid, or this window pane. I really wanted this presented to you because it answers a lot of questions that I get asked a lot when I'm talking about our funding challenges, either to coworkers or to friends or family members. I always get the question, well, why don't you just advertise more? Why don't you just sell more sponsorships? And local newspapers across this country have tried to adjust to the local advertising scene, and they have not been able to survive. The reality is, I just don't think we can sell $300,000 worth of advertising every month, and that's what we would need to do. So while that is feasible, and it could definitely bring in more money than what we have now, it's not going to be our saving grace. If you look at our last strategic plan, it really emphasized the high feasible, low impact quadrant of just ways to bring in money, which are all important, but it's not going to move the needle as much as it needs to. The next quadrant over, the high feasible, high impactful, that's what we will prioritize because that's what we think we can get the most benefit from. Rescinding city grants, cities paying for city meeting services, and potentially looking at leasing part of our building. Of course, we're still keeping track of and supporting what's in that lower right-hand quadrant, low feasible, high impactful. We're still going to advocate for legislation because that is truly going to change the game. We're going to look into fundraising, grants, and donations, which are very unpredictable, but it could also give us the cash flow we need. And then another idea that's been floated is create a foundation that could generate revenue. So we will be looking at all of these options and trying to assess the cost and benefit of each one to see what works the best moving forward. On the next slide, the last 3, or yes, they're all in that one. The last 3 strategic actions. Continue working on advocacy. We've definitely moved the needle on that this year, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that a little later in this meeting. We have been a leader coordinating with other PEG stations around the state to try to get something done legislatively. So that will continue, and we're hoping that you can be at the table with us for those discussions. Restructure CCX. This goes hand in hand with cutting the budget and looking at generating new revenue. We can't keep doing what we're doing now with fewer staff. So we'll have to just work with our leaders here and figure out what makes sense to still complete our mission, but just do it in a little bit different way. And of course, at some point, we'll have to really investigate if we have a larger commission and board than we do employees in the building, is that really what we need to do? Is that the best use of resources and your time? We'll look at that moving forward. And then the contingency plan that we talked about earlier. If cable income unexpectedly stops rather than slowly diminish each year, we need to know what to do next. So we've already been looking into that part of the process. So those are our strategic actions. and our strategic plan. We want to give everyone an opportunity to talk about the strategic plan. Al's got a few questions to kind of guide the discussion to start for a little bit of facilitated discussion, and then we'll turn it back over to Chair Blonigan for the business part of the discussion. Al?
Thank you. This is a lot of information. It represents a lot of potential change. And this is the governing body of the organization. And so before we kind of get into more detailed questions or discussion about this, I think it's appropriate to just go around and share what our reaction is to getting this plan, seeing the information, and thinking about it. So I just have one question up there with a few kind of prompts for you. And what I suggest is we take 60 seconds just to collect your thoughts on what you just heard. And then we'll just go around in a circle, one to the next, give everyone a chance to speak, and take about 60 seconds to share your reaction, share either what you're thinking about or maybe a message you want to communicate to the board. We got a lot of people here, so that's why I want to give you a minute to collect your thoughts and prepare what you want to say so that we can be efficient and go around while still giving everyone a chance to speak before we go into some more discussion. So what's your reaction to the strategic plan? What are you hopeful about? What are you fearful about? What's an unresolved question for you? Or what do you want to communicate to this group? Let's take 60 seconds and then we'll have a brave soul start us off and go in a circle. Okay, who would like to start us off? We'll just go in a circle after that, and you can speak. If you wish to pass, you certainly can. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. This may be one of very few times you'll ever hear me speak in a group. I think many communications folks were secretly quite introverted, but Risika Adesagan, Brooklyn Park. And one thing that I'm thinking about is the demographics of Brooklyn Park. We've been trying so hard over many, many years to find ways for our residents to meaningfully engage in local government. 1 in 5 of our residents was born outside of the U.S. So we've got residents who quite literally come and in some cases have no idea how things happen in their neighborhoods. They're living their lives and then suddenly there's a building there. Nobody knows why or how, or there's a big dirt pile. And CCX has been a really great partner in demystifying the process of government and helping people understand here's how things happen, here's how you can plug in, here's how you can truly be a part of the community. So as to what are you fearful about, my biggest fear is that the residents will lose out in a significant way without having CCX as a partner for the long term. So sorry to start things out on a somber note, but that's what's in my mind for right now.
Hi everyone, I'm Joe Cardoza, City of Brooklyn Center. I think I'd also add in the fearful aspect is just the shift in how people access media nowadays, especially the younger generations coming in with social media and the decline of cable. Obviously, this is why the strategic plan is being developed. But again, just that fearfulness of also the burden that might have on our residents in terms of if the city has to start paying for these services due to a decline in cable revenue.
So I'm Eric Margolis, and I am from the city of New Hope, and I'm the board member that represents CCX Create. I think that I have a lot of feelings, Al, and I'm trying to put them all in a box. So I put them all on paper, and I shared that with some of you because, I never thought that I'd be sitting in the room with all of you discussing the potential shuttering of an organization that for 4 decades has been an important asset in all of our communities. Yet, somehow, in 4 decades, we managed to arrive at this very critical moment. I don't think all of it is 100% related to people cutting the cord, because for 4 decades, our entire revenue stream was cable franchise fees. For 4 decades, we didn't really think about how to provide sustainability in an event that those fees cease immediately. For 4 decades, we don't have a contingency plan for what we would do if tomorrow the one sole contributor to our revenue disappears. But for 4 decades, the people in that back row, and under the leadership now of Shannon, many of you on this commission, the voices in underrepresented and underserved communities, have come to this building to seek an expression of things that are important. They receive that in an editorialized manner via our news product. We champion and highlight our young athletes through our sports product. But if you want to just say what you think is important about you and your identity and your community, this is the only place that you can come to do that. Sure, we can all come before all of you in your chambers and be allotted the 2 minutes to speak. But in this room, Mayor Graves can come in at our invitation and spend 30 minutes with us and talk to us about what we feel is important and what is relevant to her constituents. Or Jim can come in and talk to us for 30 minutes in an uneditorialized manner, in an uneditorialized way, where the narrative and the story that's being told is prescribed by the very people who in this room today we represent. So I know this isn't the first time you've heard me be passionate about this. And I know that there are extremely difficult decisions ahead of us. And I have so many questions about what actually you all are going to approve, because the truth is, while I appreciate the opportunity for these comments, I don't get to vote in a few minutes, right? I don't. Only you who are on the commission get to do that. And I think that if you've ever taken a vote prior to this moment, there isn't one that has been more pivotal than what you're about to do. And so I ask you to really go beyond even these questions here and ask yourself, who do we want to be? What are we trying to accomplish? How do we continue the legacy of this place? Have we seen enough information to even know if some of these options are truly viable? So I don't know if that's what you're after, Al, but that's what I'd like to share with all of you. And I thank you for listening. Thank you.
I'm Bob Woods. I'm at large on the council. I don't know how to follow that up, because he speaks so passionately, and he feels, a lot of what he says, he speaks from his heart, he speaks from his truth, and he's so right about some of the things that he said there. My thoughts are, of course, I've been involved here for 25 years on the Create side, and only got involved here with this group here a couple years ago as my availability increased. My biggest takeaway from what I just heard in the strategic plan was having the cities take some of the responsibility for the content that we process with them. That'll be a big part of our future growth, our future stasis, I guess, rather. That's pretty much my thoughts, and of course, I don't get a vote either, right? So I hope that the larger group does the right thing here in a few minutes. That's all I've got for now.
Tracy Camish, City of Crystal. I'm hopeful that we're addressing this and getting a plan. I think that that's the first step, and I think that that's great that we recognize the direness and are taking steps. I'm fearful, for the impact to the residents, but I'm also fearful for the staff, for their futures, that their jobs may not be here. I think that speaking, obviously I'm speaking as one member of the City of Crystal's council, but I feel like if each city contributed a little piece to the pie, it would be less impactful for each city. I feel that I was actually a little shocked that the cities didn't contribute for what they get back from CCX. So I'm hoping that the cities can maybe help bridge that gap until we can get on a uptrend again, and maybe legislation kicks in and we can get things figured out there. But I'm hopeful that as the cities, we can help get through this financial crisis.
I agree with everybody. I'm sure it's going to be a common theme. I think because of the value that CCX brings to the cities, and that when I say cities, not just the government, but the communities, I think there is a duty for each city to provide that service one way or another. The model that's been working for 4 decades obviously is not working anymore. So I think it is going to be an obligation of the cities to step up and take a more active role in funding this important service. You can go through all the comments, and I made a lot of the same ones when I had my interview, that access for the communities and the residents to get that information. I talked about the transparency. It's a lot more difficult for each city to do it on their own. There's a much higher value to have an organization like CCX to help provide that. One of the challenges is, as we've been trying to do with the legislation, is how do the cities get that revenue to share that revenue? So I think if we can somehow figure out a way to allow franchise fees or something to at least separate that off, because if it's all, Crystal has a unique revenue philosophy in itself. We put almost everything into tax levy already. We don't do any franchise fees, just for other things. And so having that additional diversification option for our revenue would be a lot easier, especially if if it's just another line in the levy of, cable franchise, or, CCX Media, that's not as easy as separating it out so it's clear. It's actually more, I think it'd be more transparent. They know where that money's going. It's just not going into this big, giant tax levy. End of the day, it's all coming from the same residents. It's the same amount of dollars. But I think it is incumbent upon the cities to have a closer, more equal partnership with CCX to provide what's necessary. I know there's been questions about how many staff can we reduce. We have the same conversation at the cities. The most of the services that are provided are people. You can't provide the service without the people. So, cutting the staff by 1/3, you're not going to have the same level of services. It's just not that simple. Until we get to, years from now, AI takes over everything and it's all automated and we don't have to drive our own cars, but whatever. It's, we need people, and CCX is no different. And not just the actual on the ground, but the leadership. Shannon, I don't envy your position, but totally have faith in you that you're up to the task to help figure this out. I'll stop talking and let everybody else probably echo me, but.
Yeah, so I'm Hasid Parma. I'm a citizen representative from Brooklyn Park. Just to echo all what these guys said, it's all true, right? And the one thing I'd always recommend or pushing more is getting more from the city, right? Like these guys mentioned. So when I talk to the mayor of Brooklyn Park, right, one of the things they'll push me for is more positive PR, right? So Brooklyn Park won't always have the best, public relations, or there's a negative connotation or something. And a lot of that positive news comes from CCX Media, right? And to do push more of those things. And I think if you I feel like the city leaders understand that, for all the cities, and just getting them all on the same page, right? Like, hey, if you want this, we need to contribute more. This could go away. And CCX Media is one of the few outlets that always has the positive, right? On the high school or the college or, their school events, whatever.
Beth Kramer, Communications Coordinator for the City of New Hope. I don't think I have much to say that hasn't already been said here by this group, but I am a team of one. And so I think the services that CCX provides to really tell those stories that aren't going to be picked up by the larger stations is absolutely invaluable. I think we know in this room, and it's been echoed in the strategic plan, what we would lose. And I think that our leaders within the cities know what we would lose and the value that CCX provides. And I am feeling, I would say a little definitely fearful, but also seeing the steps of what the impacts could be. The reduction of staff, the reduction of services is so jarring that I think now is the time that we in this group really need to go back to our communities, because I don't think our community members that are consuming the media provided by CCX Media necessarily understand the value of what's provided and may not notice the value of what's provided until it's too late. So I think I'm feeling fearful but also energized of, hey, let's get after this and go get it. And how are we going to make an impactful change so we don't get to step 2 or 3 or 4 within that plan? So how do we all band together and really make this possible?
I don't really have anything to add. This is my first meeting.
Welcome.
So I'm just really listening, but I just will say that I agree with all the comments I've heard so far.
Thanks. Aaron Wagner from Robbinsdale City Council. Yeah, I don't have much to add either. I think just from being one member on a city council, there's no guarantee that I can get the rest of the city council on board, although I think my promise to the group is that I'll advocate to my city council and to city staff to prioritize CCX role in our communications and in our dissemination of information from the city, because we rely on them. We don't have our own video team or anything like that. But I think it's reasonable to ask cities to chip in in this point in time, and yeah, my promise to you all is that I'll advocate for that.
I'm Cheryl Weiler. I'm with the City of Golden Valley. I agree with everything, obviously. One of the first things that jumps out on me is CCX's national reputation. It's highly respected around the country, and in my 34 years of working for the city, as I've gone to conferences around the country, people have actually been envious that we have access to this and all of the services. It would really be a pity and a tragedy to lose that for our communities. I'm hopeful that we can sell our communities on the value of hyperlocal coverage, whether it's news, sports, government. I don't think people realize the value of that until it's gone. And people in my position in other cities know if you try to deal with the regional affiliates, they're not interested unless someone's dead or somebody embezzled something, and we've got a lot of good stories to tell that won't get told otherwise. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure our residents hear those stories. I think one of the most important things is to find the right cocktail of pay for service. There are services and there are ways to pay for it, and to look at what everybody wants to watch, and is everybody paying to have that privilege. When I think about the cities and their budgets, I think about what could be absorbed into a city budget, things like the grants you give us for our equipment. Those are wonderful. That could be absorbed, but adding 2 bodies to our budget permanently to do council meetings and video would be harder to absorb. And that's all I have to say right now.
I'm Roger Bergman. I represent Golden Valley, and I love CCX cable TV. That's the first thing I turn on in the morning, and I live in the Calvary Co-op, just 1 block east of Golden Valley City Hall. I was on the board of directors there for 6 years, and in talking to everybody there, I'm the only one that watches this program. And I've been in the Robbinsdale City Band for 45 years, and I love to see our concerts at Brookview Park and wherever. But and I spend a lot of time at Golden Valley McDonald's and Robbinsdale McDonald's, and then talking to people there, nobody watches our programs. And I watch our city council meetings all the time, and I tell people about it, nobody's interested. And I don't understand it, but I tell people about our concerts and all, and the city news and all that, but nobody else seems to care about it, and I don't know why.
Maurice Harris, Golden Valley City Council. I guess we're the Golden Valley corner today. For me, ditto what everyone has said. For me, it's always been about transparency and ensuring that people have access to hyperlocal news. Like Cheryl said, they only show up when something bad happens or assuming something bad happens, and not the things we were doing. And I think for community members, especially in this period of time where media and news is in this kind of weird zone of trust, or do you trust the media, yes or no, having a source where community members of all stripes can go to understand what's happening in our community is so valuable right now. And to see us kind of go away from that because of the true pressures of the finances and changing demographics and changing everything in a sense, to lose it now, and then someone asks what happened to the city council meeting. I don't want to be the guy that's like, well, we had a chance, but we couldn't afford it because you don't want to pay extra taxes, for example, or you weren't interested until it's too late. So the plan, as Eric kind of says, this is kind of this, the work put into it. It's a path forward, which I support. I think it's on whoever's a member of city council on this commission to really go back to our cities and advocate, because I think once it's gone, it's hard to replace it. And so I think that's onus on me as council members in Golden Valley to push our city council, which they're supportive of. We'll make the numbers work somehow, some way, to throw in our 2 cents to try to help sustain this as we kind of look for a pathway forward.
Good morning, Kevin Vandenberg, a resident of Golden Valley, but a member of the board. One thing that strikes me in reading the plan is the very first and base action assumes the grants are removed and assumes the cities will fund the city stuff. Those are big assumptions when they have to go through council action and budgeting and voting in cases. I don't know what the timeline is. Echoing what's been said by the previous couple of speakers, I think once we contract, it's hard to come back. I mean, you can do it if you really plan for it, but You lose valuable trained assets, resources, space, anything you jettison, you might not be able to get back if the budget does come around. So I'm not saying I have a better plan, but I just want to point out, in case it wasn't painfully obvious to everyone, that's the base plan hinges on something that we have a little more control over than legislation nationally or at state level on franchise fees. And I think keying off of something Roger said, watching it, people are cutting cords. It means they don't have cable. So how are they watching CCX content? And are we really promoting the content and the availability of the content outside of the cable channels?
I'm Carol Morris with the City of Maple Grove. Like Beth, I am a team of one, although fortunately I have a summer intern this year. But really echoing what everyone has said, I am fully in support of the city's funding CCX. Shannon and I have talked a little bit about, the grant. I was like, can't we just give you that grant money back? In addition to whatever funding is needed. And I've said for years, we would be lost without CCX. We don't have the capacity whatsoever it would take a huge team to do what CCX does for us. I am fearful certainly for the staff here. I can't imagine. I've got such long-standing relationships with them. They are friends, they are trusted mentors. So that would be very difficult. And I think too, from a city aspect, we have used CCX a lot. I mean, we love the personal stories that they tell and the organizations and the offerings that they have during elections. But we've really used them as a tool to show behind the scenes at the city. People don't know what all we do, what's going on, how decisions are made, what we support. So we've really used that as well. That's been a key factor for us.
I don't have any great wisdom on this, but I do know that without numbers, the costs of what I have no idea what it costs to put on our news programming. And we talk about cutting something, and there's not a number in this report that talks about dollars. And I think that I think the report in and of itself, as far as it goes, is fine. But until we can get some numbers attached to it and find out what some of the consequences and the options may be, I think we still need to work on it.
Tim Sandvik, staff with the City of Robbinsdale, want to call out part of the CCX board, not on the commission. But I would share maybe a slightly different perspective, share the sentiment, an incredible product led by Shannon, an incredible group we have behind us here, highly talented. The output is incredible. So concern for the loss of that content for all that's been shared. But from my perspective, what I would say out to the group, this is a room full of problem solvers. I don't know what the solution is, but I'm optimistic. I don't know how we get there. I don't know the work to be done, but every day in what we do, we solve complicated, difficult problems, and I'm confident in finding a way forward.
Shane Michelson, I'm the city administrator and police chief with the city of Osseo. We're a small community, so we lean on CCX a lot for just about everything. And so we were just talking about this amongst our staff because I'd read the packet and started looking at some things, and I think our community would suffer probably a lot more than most because there is no way to budget for us to have people to do what CCX does. That would be too much for us to take on. So I just echo what everyone has said here today. Again, we have to have a plan and we have to move forward. You can't worry or go about things you can't control. So if we do have to do that with our cities, as far as the city of Osseo, we support that. We're gonna have to tighten our belts just because we have to, not because we want to. I don't think anybody sitting here wants to have this happen, but we're just gonna have to.
Mike Ostaffi, City of Maple Grove Council. Jim, thank you for bringing up the numbers. And I was waiting for someone to do that because there are absolutely no numbers in here for us to take any action upon. What are the costs of each of the departments? We talked about we value the news, or the citizens value sports, but at what cost? I have no idea. If we start making cuts in certain areas, what's that really going to get us? We talk about high feasible and high impactful. Cities pay for meeting services. Let's say there's $1,000 per meeting for that. 3 meetings a month on average per city. That's 27 meetings a month. That's $27,000 a month. That's $300,000 a year. That's 1 year of declining cable revenue. That's a one-time deal. It's not going to cover anything for the long term. Cutting the grants, $300,000. Again, 1 year of declining Comcast revenue. So, I'm not sure that saying that cities pay for the meeting services is really high impactful. The leasing, it says it's high impactful, but there's no numbers associated with that. How much would we get for leasing out half this building? What are the costs associated with that? You really can't, in my mind, I can't make a decision based upon, people value this, people value that. But again, what's the cost of delivering those services, and is something that we can continue to do? So, without any numbers, I can't vote on passing this because I have no idea what the impact's going to be of these different cuts or of the different potential directions given here. I think we need to have it, especially from the city services side. We're all over the different meetings, the mayor's minutes, the update, the weekly update with our city manager, and everything else that's done. But we need revenue, and we need to cut costs. And I don't see the specific numbers in this document at all, and I'm not sure why. So that's my, throwing the bomb in the middle of all this. So, thank you.
I'm Daryl Sanis. I'm a citizen rep from the city of Brooklyn Center. Just want to say that I've been on the board and the commission since 2017, and I've only been here for one reason, and that's because I truly believe in what CCX does and the people that work here. It is all very top shelf. The one different perspective that I will add that hasn't been talked about already is that I spent time with Shannon and Dave and many others at the state legislature on several occasions, and met with dozens of reps from around the state. There is no stomach to do anything this year, and I'm probably more pessimistic than optimistic as to what can happen in the next year or two. I'm not saying it can't happen, and I'm not saying we should not stop pursuing that, but it's not looking good right now. There is total bipartisan non-support at this moment, and a lot's going to have to change before we find additional revenue. I think so. We have to do something now. We can't wait. What the something is, I'm not sure about. I think talking with our cities is probably a good first step. But I agree with some of the comments that we need to get a handle on the costs. What are we really talking about? Is it really going to help? So that's all I have for now.
Bill Blonigan, citizen of Robbinsdale. I've been on the commission a long time. I have been able to see some of the numbers because I've talked to Shannon. If I was on the commission and I hadn't seen the numbers, I would have the same kind of comments. I would want to vote based upon what numbers I see and what numbers I know. So to the extent that you're asking for more time to vote on a thing that you don't know the numbers of, I would probably agree with that. We're not in an emergency today to pass this. We are in an emergency, though, in what we do because basically Comcast says that there's a better way to do this for us, Comcast, by just getting rid of the 5% and using your rights of way for free. And that's what I want to do because I'm the chairman of the board of Comcast and I make $33.8 million per year. And I think we do have a good story to tell the legislature. I think that once they know about this, we do have a good chance of success. I think Robbinsdale's general budget for non-revenue things like water and garbage and things like that, the enterprise funds, is about $13 million. So I would be interested to know what city here has about a $33.8 million general fund budget per year. And I think that's a pretty effective way to tell the legislature that, you know, one guy at Comcast makes as much as X city for their entire budget, and that's not fair. Fine, they can try to get a monopoly and they can try to rule the world and buy extra little things that I can't afford, like Universal Studios. I can't afford that. That's fine, but our attorney, Mike Bradley, in one of his letters to us, had a very effective little paragraph that said it's not fair to use city rights of way for free to make money for private enterprise. And I don't want the guy to have to live on $31 million a year, but I mean, it could happen. He could live on $31 million a year. And that doesn't count all the other facilities that are going through our rights of way for free also. So I think there is hope to do that. But when Shannon comes up with a budget that says we have 25 full-time employees and we're going to go down to 10 or 15, average is at about 12 and a half, that's half of the staff, you know, that's a drastic thing. I'm very encouraged by what the cities are saying about their willing to contribute. I mean, when it gets down to brass tacks, how much? I wish I was like Harvard, and for the last 44 years on the commission, I would have said, we're not going to give any money to the cities. We're going to take all that money, we're going to invest it in smart things like the stocks that explode, like Netflix, and we had a $60 billion fund right now. I wish we would have done that, but we didn't. We've, as cities, had a nice deal because we've had departments that are funded by the cable subscribers. We're down to less than half of our 71,000 or whatever it was, $76,000 member peak for cable. And so I think there is a way forward, and I think it'll be drastically different. With regard to what is prioritized, assuming that you got, you know, good input from these people that represent the communities, I do believe that news and sports and coverage of city meetings is something that the general public, through our observations, does prioritize over actual ability to just come in and do your own program. And I'm appreciative of the fact that Eric gave me something that is more in-depth than what he could do in 1 minute, and all of that's true. But we have to prioritize what we cut and what we can do if we're going to have so big of a decrease in our revenue. So I've been the chair for just a couple meetings, and April Graves has only been here for one meeting, and I hope it's not our fault that just as soon as we get here, all of this is happening, but I really also don't envy Shannon's job either, so I don't know if it goes back to you or it goes back to you.
Thank you all for sharing. It was really nice to hear all of your perspectives on this. What I would suggest is that we give Shannon a chance to answer any questions you want to answer, I mean, just based on what you hear, and then open it up for discussion before a vote.
All right. I think a lot of the questions that we got, some of it is to be determined. Like some of the parts of the plan we'll really investigate and drill down and find out the cost of things and the willingness to pay. So that is that. Why weren't there numbers included? I think a lot of our numbers were in the budget that was approved in November, and I did not pull those out and include those, but they are accessible. And so I definitely can pull out how much, for example, it costs to run the news department and how much it costs to run the sports department. That was that we've been segmenting that out in the budget for a few years, anticipating that we would have to make changes, and we needed to know how much it costs to run certain departments. So that is definitely accessible and something that we can present before you again. I don't guess I have anything else unless there's a specific question.
I guess kind of to that point, it's not lost on me that these types of plans have, there's a lot of information that everybody would always like more specifics. But I guess in my understanding, the purpose of the strategic plan is a plan. Those more, the tactics and the specifics are going to be the next stages, the next phases. I mean, every year when we do the budget, based on the guidance of this plan, will be, more of those specifics of the dollars of, okay, that's what this means. But I guess, am I wrong on that? Or I'm comfortable with, personally, I would be comfortable taking action on this because this stage is needed to give you the guidance for the next step, the next phase of, okay, now that we've got some direction, we're going to come back. I mean, all of that information is going to come back as part of the next several steps.
Right. We are tasked with putting together a budget this summer. If you remember, the budget that we approved or you approved in November was $600,000 over. So we had to dip into reserves, and so we knew that we would have to make changes this year. So the hope was that the strategic plan could kind of guide us in the changes that we need to make in order to live within our means and not dip into reserves. Unless that is the commission and the board's perspective, and they're okay with us just operating as normal until we don't have any money left. So yes, like the budget is presented for the first time in September. It goes to executive committee. It's hammered out. It's approved in November. And so that's where, the board and commission definitely have a say-so in what that looks like. Whether we want to have other meetings between now and then, I'm definitely open to that. If the board or commission wants greater input in that process.
So, like Adam, you're saying that you would like us to adopt a general framework here that next year's 2026 budget will be balanced, and you've given us guidance on the probable specifics of how you're going to get there. But until the budget is adopted in September, there's time for you to give Mr. Willis the specific numbers and justify how you're going to get to this balanced budget. And we, as a board, can still say, well, you did A through Z, and we don't like your numbers on X and Y and Q, and we're going to change that. And in fact, we could even still have the ability to say, we are going to dip into the reserves because we do want to do thus and such. But again, back to what Adam was saying, you would like us to approve the general framework of going forward and trying to reach a balanced budget, albeit we're going to make changes maybe later to the specifics.
Sure.
If I may, I think the question is, what are we voting for, right? And the strategic plan is the goals and the assumptions that Shannon and her team are going to use to budget. And so you can't move forward without an approved budget by the commission and the board. That's going to happen later, right? We're only in the middle of the process. And so what you would be voting for today, I would suggest that you vote to approve the strategic plan, right? You have the report, it's here, it's a document. What that means is that you are putting your support behind this plan so that Shannon and the team can begin budgeting with these goals and assumptions in mind. If the commission decides not to approve the plan, then the question is, do we not support it, or do we have a different set of assumptions and goals that we direct the staff to begin budgeting with? And so the plan itself does not say what the specific cuts are going to be, what the budget will be, any of that. That will be determined during budgeting, which then you also have input and approval of, right? And so I would view this as a long-term plan whose purpose is to get started with budgeting now, and then you will have input and approval of each during each year, and at your own pleasure. You can decide at any time to say, we need to come together and vote to make a different decision, right? That's your role as the governance of this organization. And so, again, what are we voting for? What I suggest is that you're voting to approve the plan so that we can take the next step, which is budgeting and creating those specific decisions for the next year.
Other comments, questions about that? Go ahead. I'll recognize Kevin first because he raised his hand first.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for that clarification, because as I read the plan, I had to make that assumption that this was just the framework to go into the budgeting. Even had to make the assumption that primary plan happens. If still necessary, we move to the first contingency and the second. I had to assume that that was the case by the way that it was worded. And I know when you work on something for a really long time, it's really clear in your head, and when you read it, you might not realize what others seeing it for the first time would miss. With respect to the numbers, I had all the same questions. Computer science guy, theater guy, right? So I have a passion, but I want to solve the problem, as was mentioned. And even to validate the approach, a pie chart of news is this much, sports is this much, right? Or when it's the approach in the plan of cutting staff, there was one statement in there about, well, it's the bulk of the cost. Is it? How much? Cities are going to have to pay for, what is the likelihood? What actually is the run cost? Is that the right direction to go, or the right assumption to make in the initial plan? Can't even validate if that looks right without at least some high-level numbers, right? And I get that the details aren't there. I would take this opportunity also to suggest that in future ABDO reports, we get another level of indent, because all we get is services. Okay. It would be helpful to have a little bit more of a pillar breakdown and allocating of costs would be very helpful at a high level, just to validate that this makes sense based on big picture numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to go back to the initial grounding and recognize the wonderful work that Shannon has done and the staff have done, and the difficult decisions that lie ahead for all of us, and this great discussion that we're having. And also having Al here to assist us. But I agree with Mr. Willis and Mr. Ostafi, and even with you, Mr. Flanagan. You've had the opportunity to see numbers that the rest of us have not. You said that earlier. This isn't just a plan to guide budgeting, sir. This to me says we are going to take this next action and reduce the staff from 25 to 10 or 15. And if that doesn't work, you guys approved that our next option is we're going to eliminate services and fall back to position number 1. And if that still doesn't solve the problem, we're going to fall back to position number 2. And then right here, it clearly asks everyone to adopt this plan and empower Shannon and the wonderful, beautiful people over there to execute on these 3 goals. And I don't think that we should make that decision today. Again, I don't get to vote, but as a member of the CCX Media Board and the secretary of the executive committee, we have not had an executive committee meeting this year to discuss this. We have not seen enough information to really understand what it means to the budget, not let alone the mission, to eliminate 10 to 15 positions in this company. Here's numbers. You want numbers? It's $158,000 a year for people to be able to come in and say what they want to say in this create space. That's the entire line item on the budget of $4.1 million. The plan, sir, says that if we don't sustain 12 months of revenue in our reserves, it triggers fall option number 1. We already don't have 12 months of revenue. Laying people off, eliminating departments is an expensive endeavor. It doesn't save money. It takes an immediate hit to the bottom line, as I'm sure all of you are well aware. So how can we be asked to approve this, to give this guidance, to allow Shannon and the staff to feel confident when we're talking hypothetically about scenarios that we cannot validate with actual financial numbers? Listen, I understand the cost of not doing anything at all. I get how painful this moment is for everyone, and the grace that everyone is showing back there and that Shannon is showing in this very difficult time. But if you approve this plan, and if we keep doing everything the same way that we've done it up to this point, and we expect some magical different thing to happen, we're all going to be very disappointed. Again, I understand that change is inevitable and that we have to evolve and that we have to change. I understand that this represents the survey results that all of you provided, including myself. I understand that these are difficult decisions to be made. But if you approve this plan today and we leave this room, it will be September when we come back and decisions will already have been made and people's lives will have been impacted and services will have been reduced. And none of you probably will have even written resolutions to bring before your chambers to see if we can get back grant money or to see if we're going to fund city services. And the voices of the people that all of you represent will be diminished. Please don't allow that to happen without more discussion, without more transparency, without the benefit of being able to see the same numbers that Chair Bonnigan has seen, without truly understanding how much are we going to save by impacting 10 people's lives. What does that change to the monthly burn down rate? Please don't tell me to look in the budget because I have torn what was given to me apart, and nowhere do I know what it costs to run or produce any of these things. The only number I know is $158,000 for CCX Create. Thank you for allowing me to state that.
Yes, you were a good guest at this commission meeting. Thank you. Anybody else?
I have a question. Thank you. And bear with me as I work to articulate myself. So while I haven't been in Brooklyn Park for terribly long, I can say my time on the commission, for the most part, my bosses, the folks that I report to, have been fairly okay with things. They haven't expressed a serious interest in the happenings here. They read my notes and they say, you know what, this sounds pretty good. But the discussion that we have this morning, I imagine that when I go back with my notes, they will have a point of view. They will want to tap in, and as somebody that can vote today, I do have some concerns about voting when we haven't had the opportunity to dig into this with our respective cities. I can think of council members in Brooklyn Park who would say, hey, wait, I have questions, I have thoughts, I want to engage in this more fully. So my question truly is, what kind of time do we have for that sort of thing? Are we able to call a meeting before September? What are our options so that everyone that's here can feel really solid in whatever decision we make?
Go ahead.
I think we could call a meeting this summer, absolutely. I think I would look for guidance as to, I can definitely pull out the budget and when we can go through and share that. That's the information that's been shared with Chair Bonnigan, is just what was presented in the November meeting. I can pull that out and we can come together and we can talk about this again. If this isn't passed, I think what I would be looking at as far as staff is what guidance do you have in putting together the budget for next year, because we need to get started on that. So that is, and then it was just like, when and where do we want to meet? And we can definitely meet here at 7:30 in the morning on a Thursday in June, which has been, Thursdays at 7:30 has been our tradition. So I'm open to that if that's the wishes of the commission.
So I don't have strong feelings either way, whether we pass this here today or whether we have another meeting. If I was a person that just was hearing about this by my packet 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, I might want to delay, and I don't care about that. The number, though, that sticks out to me is that we peaked at 76,000 or 77,000 subscribers to Comcast cable, and we get 5% of that money, along with some public education and government PEG money. But the vast majority of what we get is 5%. And if you go down to half the subscribers, which is now really less, of course, the budget is going to not work anymore on the same level that it worked. So I think we do need, at some point, to pass this strategic plan and understand that we've got to operate under a vastly decreased amount of money, and that normally with organizations like this, if it's like a city, 80% of your expenses are personnel. So, but to come back here on another day so that people can interface with you directly by conversation or email or whatever, I don't have a problem with that either. So I guess just not as a vote, how many commission members would rather get this done with today and are okay with voting on the strategic plan today? And how many members would rather have some more time to think about this and come back? So only commission members. How many commission members are here right now?
14.
Only commission members. How many of you would rather come back and do this after you have more information? I'm coming kind of neutral. So what do we have? Raise your hands higher.
Oh, sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and how many would rather?
7.
7? Okay, 7. How many would okay, so that's exactly half. But I'm not gonna vote on this because I don't care one way or another, really. I mean, I wanna make people feel good about the process, really. So how many people would rather get this done today? 1, 2, 3, 4, all right, any unified vote I did. Okay, so it seems to me that the majority would rather have some more time. I know when I was on a city council, sometimes I would get a packet on Friday and I had to vote on Tuesday after having my vacation over the weekend, and it was like, oh, I can't absorb all this. So I understand that. So there could be more discussion, or there could be a motion to lay this over for a special meeting scheduled on a date certain in June at 7:30 right here with the this item on the agenda. Does that sound like a reasonable thing to do?
I'd be happy to make that motion.
Okay, do it. Table this item until such and such a date.
Ugh, first motion. Scary. Ooh.
You're in a safe place.
Thank you. I feel so protected. I move to table the vote on the strategic plan to a date, a certain date in June. The end.
And let's see if there's even a second to this motion. Is there a second to this motion? A second. Okay, there is. So the date certain in June, let's look at our calendars, would be what?
The third Thursday is Juneteenth, and that's a recognized holiday. So I would suggest June 12th, the second Thursday of the month. But that's...
Okay, is that okay with that's what your motion was, right?
Yes,
Right.
June 12th.
And that's you, Jim, understood that to be your second, correct? All right, discussion on the motion. Go ahead.
Just a quick question. So at this meeting in June, the expectation is that each of the council members are able to go back, talk to their cities, get a better understanding of how each city feels about potentially funding. And we would also have more visuals at that time of like the percentages of, you know, each category, along with dollar amounts. Is that, am I correct in that assumption?
Whatever you want to do with your council, that's up to you.
But I mean, I guess what's going to be different at the next meeting?
Well,
is my question.
The people that have expressed their reservations here today about voting for this strategic plan today have mostly said, I need more information. I haven't seen the specifics, and they'll have between now and then to ask Shannon for pie charts or whatever she can provide that shows this more definitely. That would not say that you as a commission member shouldn't go to your city council and tell about this and say, people like Aaron from Robbinsdale have said they're supportive of trying to have more support financially from cities. What do you think, you Crystal people? And you know, they might tell you, no way we'll ever do that. And you come back and say, well, I'm voting against this strategic plan. I want to run out of money sooner. Or you could come back and say, yes, they're supportive or whatever. But what you do with your city council, that's up to you.
Right. I guess I was just more questioning if Shannon was able to provide us in the near future with those pie charts and the dollar amounts so that we had something to go back and then have more information and more of a confidence in how we would vote at the next meeting.
Definitely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Thank you. I want to clarify and get, I made this mistake previously in this project. In September is when you discuss the budget, correct?
Yes.
And so what I would caution for this, I think June meeting is at your pleasure. The budget will not be done in June, right? And so this would be a meeting where additional supporting existing data is presented, right? That's fine. September is when you review the work of budgeting, and then the approval is
November.
November, right? So you'll be able to see and discuss in September. Approval is in November. So again, we're at the beginning of budgeting. And I want to make sure that people's expectations for a June meeting is not that we have fast-tracked budgeting, right? We still have 2.5 years before you potentially run out of money. We're not trying to fast-track the normal process of budgeting. We're trying to use new assumptions and goals in that process, right? And so, again, that's what this strategic plan represents, is those goals and assumptions. The second thing I wanted to say is that the strategic plan has the assumption that eventually cities would pay for some form of services, right? Cities are the primary beneficiary of particularly meeting services, right? And so they are potentially the most sustainable and direct payers for those services. That is a huge question, right? Getting all your cities to agree to something like this is a huge amount of work that would be before the organization, the commissioners, the board. And I would caution you in communicating this to the cities that you do not cut off that possibility before you've had time to build the case for it. And so in this strategic plan, one of the primary activities is getting stakeholders activated to be able to make that case over time, so that in the future, when cable money continues to slowly decline, we're slowly building it up with other money, right? So we are not asking cities to pay for all of CCX Media in September, right? We are trying to build the case for that over time. And I want to say this one last thing, and then I'll be done. I myself am saying having cities start pay. Cities already pay for CCX Media. It's just that if CCX Media didn't exist, those cable commission fees would go directly to the cities, right? Cities have already created a structure to pay for these services. Now things are changing, right? And so that's the question. It's something that's going to take time to do, and success is not guaranteed, but it's worthwhile, and it will need everyone working together to have success. Thank you.
Since there's a motion on the floor and this is a commission meeting, I'm not going to recognize you at this time. You can talk at your meeting, and we have heard from you already, but I just want commissioners at this point.
But Al is not a commissioner. and you
That's
allow him-
correct. We hired him to come here and guide us through this
I'm just
process.
looking for clarification.
And if he wants to talk on an item 2 items down, a thing that we didn't hire him for, I won't recognize him for that either. But anyway, any other commissioners?
Yeah, Chair Blonigan?
Yes.
The issue around getting the numbers on some of these things, talked about feasibility and impact. If we're gonna vote on a strategic plan, I would like to know, what is the feasibility? How did you assess the feasibility, and how did you assess the impact? How much money do we think we need to get from the cities? How much does it cost to provide? And is that truly impactful or not? And is it feasible to get the cities to pay $100 a meeting, $1,000 a meeting, $2,000 a meeting? I don't know, but there was nothing in there that helped me understand how you got to feasibility and impact. And, quite honestly, at some point, if I don't see the feasibility and the impact is in my mind low, why even start at 1? Let's go right to 3. And not waste time and years and millions trying to do something that isn't feasible or isn't that impactful. Again, looking at a couple $100,000 here or there is only going to replace potentially 1 year's loss of lost cable fees. So that isn't going to do much for us in the long term. Budgeting is annual. This is something we need to determine if the revenues are there and if we can get them. We talked about doing advertising, we talked about selling services, leasing out the space, but, if the leasing out the space brings in 50,000 a year, again, we still have the problem. So let's, in my mind, I would like to see how we got to the feasibility and impact numbers, and let us judge, as a commission, is that truly going to work? And then, maybe we jump from step 1 to step 3 or 4 or whatever it is, if we don't see a path forward based upon some of that. That's why I'm asking for the numbers, because I really don't know. And yeah, there's things in the budget, but the budget's an annual number. What do we expect going forward? What is the leasing projection? What are our costs to provide services to Maple Grove, to Plymouth, to Golden Valley, to whomever? So, and will certain people pay or not?
Any commission members have anything else to add?
I do.
Go ahead.
I do. Isn't that budgeting though? What you're talking about, needing those numbers, to me is budgeting, not a strategic plan. The strategic plan guides us or staff, because I'm staff. The council puts together a strategic plan which guides staff on getting those numbers and putting all that together so that we are formatted in a way that this is what we need. That's what plans are about. A strategic plan is not making the cuts. It's not making this is exactly what's going to happen, but it's a plan for staff to get the numbers together to then present to all of us. That's what this plan is. It's a guidance tool. The numbers haven't been given because that's not what a strategic plan is, in my mind. Being staff, our council tells us, this is our plan. This is what we want you to look at. And that gives me guidance, so I'm not wasting my time running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to find things to bring forward. No, this is what we need to see to go forward. That sounds like budgeting to me, just to me. It's budgeting numbers. And that's what's coming once we have a plan. And if we decide as a group, once the numbers come in, that we should go to number 4, 100%. But that's something you can do later. But staff needs guidance on what to look into and where to go. Otherwise, you just look at this big budget number and you're like, well, what am I supposed to be looking at? Well, when do you start your budgeting process? Now. Because it is some big changes and some big things that we need as far as guidance from staff. And so if we don't do this today and we wait till June, that's 2 months, month from now, which is specific time that they're going to waste not doing anything or being able to do anything. Because they don't have a plan, they don't have any guidance on what to do. And we have last year's numbers, great, but if they don't have guidance on digging in, because nobody has looked at rental this place, I'm sure, because they haven't been told they can do that. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. What if they bring those numbers and they spent 30 hours trying to figure that out? I'd be sitting there going, you just wasted your time. Maybe. I mean, we don't know, right? I mean, maybe we don't even want to look at that. But if as a board or a commission, we don't want to give staff any guidance, and we want the numbers before all of this, with what numbers do you want? So if you're going to vote this down, then go ahead and do that, but then you better be straightforward on what numbers you want exactly. Because otherwise staff's just running around. They're going to put together a big long list of numbers, but they don't really know what we need or what you need or what you want. Because that's what I ask my council a lot, is give me direction on what I need to do. And they said, here's the plan, here's the direction, now go do that, bring it back, and we'll make our decisions and ask more questions and do all of that. That's the process. There's no cuts that are going to be made without this board giving or commission giving guidance. There's no, they have to have a plan. I'm sorry. I find that to be a little bit off the rails, that we're going to push this back a month when they could be working on things, and we're going to be in the same place with no plan.
That's it. It's a plan. We're planning for the worst, hoping for the best. Right? And we've been given basically the worst, like worst outcome, right? Here's the worst thing. But all we're doing is giving guidance. And you can give guidance without specific numbers because that's the numbers they're going to come back with. And if we need more, we can get more. But at least they're not wasting their time. Because time is money. And believe me, I've been on wild goose chases before as a staff person. I've learned that a long time in 30 years of police work. You know, go with the facts, let's get it all together. But I've gone down some wild goose chases that wasted a lot of my time. And as we all know, in cities, staff time is premium. And so I think we need to give some direction to the staff here to pull together some numbers, to pull together the things that is in the strategic plan, and then we can evaluate that as we go down the road. And if we need to have more meetings during budget time, like once they get the budget together in September, October, just to get everything narrowed down, which we may, I think that's the time when we need to be having more in-depth discussions, because that's when they're going to have everything put together for everyone.
And hence you will be voting against the motion to table.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else on the commission? Go ahead.
So thank you for that, Shane. That was actually very helpful. And I guess for me, from my own clarification, voting on the strategic plan isn't going to say that we're going to cut staff or that we're not going to just continue as we are in the time being. Like, it's not making any of that, right? We're always going to have a decision. Even voting on this, we're still going to, as the commission, be able to vote on every action that happens or that's decided upon. Is that correct?
It would give us the guidance to, yes, it does say cut staff, so we would be able to shape the budget for September reflecting that.
And would we would have to
Yes.
vote on, obviously, because it would be a budget.
The budget is before you twice. Generally, it is presented in September. It's referred to the executive committee, where we do drill down into some of the nitty-gritty, and then some changes sometimes are made, and it comes back before this body in November.
So it's essentially just giving us, okay, if we cut this staff, here's this budget, or if we blah, 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 here's this budget. It's essentially just giving you the options to lay out different budget scenarios.
That was our plan. Our plan was to put together different scenarios in-house, working with Julie from Abdo, and then see what made sense.
Okay.
And what worked the best. And our plan was to have an executive committee meeting and have them peel through it in August before it came to the group in September. But yes, any numbers that I would be pulling together are right out of the 2025 budget that you all approved in November. That is itemized per department. So all of that information is very accessible.
Anybody else on the commission?
Shannon, regarding the city's costs, do you have any accounting record as to how much Golden Valley paid you in 2024?
Yes. I don't have that in front of me.
Right.
But yes.
Okay, commission members, any other commission members? Yes, go ahead, Rizika.
I don't think I've ever spoken this much in a single day. So this is a really helpful conversation, particularly your comments. I certainly don't want to send staff on a wild goose chase. For me, my concern is less about line items and specific numbers as it is. I would appreciate the time to go back to Brooklyn Park leaders and say, okay, you've been hearing in maybe some abstract ways about the trends over time, but we're really at this juncture where we need to approve a plan to move forward because, you know, we have a city clerk, we have meetings to run. They need perhaps a bit of time to truly digest and hear what they've been hearing all along, but now it's not something where somebody can just say, oh, thanks, nice packet, Rizika, and shelve it away. And so, you know, if the timing is of a concern, I do understand that. We could have the meeting tomorrow. But I mean, I'm deeply troubled though about the real life impacts to staff, and I'll just speak for myself. I don't want to inadvertently make the wrong decision or a mistake somewhere. And I really value the opportunity to go back to my city manager and my mayor and say, hey, I need you to read this. I know that you've had it, but literally, let's sit down and go through it. So it's not my intention at all to create more work or make demands that create heartache. Just want a little bit of time to fly back to home base.
Okay, any other commissioners? So, technically, probably under our rules, which I haven't read, a motion to table is not a debatable thing. And we've been doing all of this debate, but I thought it was important in that we seldom have these dialogues between us. So, excuse me, and thank you for letting me technically violate the rules. So, now, can we have a roll call vote, keeping in mind that usually the chairperson gets to vote last? Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. April Graves.
Abstain.
Daryl Sanis.
That we're voting on the motion to table this particular item until June 12th at 7:30 a.m. right here.
Yes. So April Graves? Abstain. Okay. Daryl Sanis?
No.
Risica?
Yes.
Atsagan? Has it Parmar left? Adam Bell?
Nay.
Tracy Camish?
Nay.
Roger Bergman?
No.
Maurice Harris?
No.
Carol Morris?
No.
Mike Ostaffi?
Aye.
Beth Kramer?
Aye.
Shane Michelson?
Nay.
James Willis?
Aye.
Aaron Wagner?
Nope.
And Bill Blonigan?
So what's the total?
1, 2,
Lucky.
3, 7 no.
I think it's
1, 2, 3, 4 yes.
All right, I'll vote yes. The motion fails to table this. So, is there an alternate motion to do whatever it is you want to do, or to approve the staff's strategic plan?
I motion to approve staff strategic plan.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion for discussion
Oh, I
purposes.
seconded it, Bill.
Okay, Aaron Wagner seconded it. I failed to recognize him in time. Okay, now this is a separate thing. Discussion. Most of us have indicated what our reasoning and preferences are. For example, Shane, but so ditto to what he already said. But does anybody on the commission want to make any point before we vote on the motion to approve the staff's strategic plan?
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
I've really just been trying to listen in my first meeting, although I will say that, the conversation around numbers within a strategic plan, I initially was kind of like thinking about it myself, and I'm like, no, that's really about like what your priorities are, the direction that you're going. It helps the staff figure out what their specific action items are going to be under specific priorities and goals, and typically that does not have numbers. So that was my initial response to some of the conversation. I also recognize that if not knowing exactly what the cost will be to Brooklyn Center, it's difficult for me to also make that case. But then you said, well, wait a minute, don't jump the gun. Give us a chance to sort of build some momentum, to build more buy-in around supporting CCX and the amazing coverage that they have here. So I understand people's reluctance on wanting to make a decision right now. But after also hearing you say, this is just sort of to set up some scenarios, no, not 10 or 15 staff are not going to be cut next month. So this is just about laying out some specific
scenarios. I would hope that there would be, you know, that the first priority goal wouldn't include any cuts, you know, and if that's a possibility, I would hope that there's still an avenue to try to figure out how to do that. And I think that that's part of why we're receiving some pushback, because there's no scenario in here, there's no goal in here that is really the ideal of what I think all of us would want to see. But I also recognize too that I think, even though this is my first meeting, I would still argue that the staff and the people that do the day-to-day on-the-ground work here have a better idea about how to guide the organization than the commission members, even though we're here to advise them on that as well. And so that's all the comments I have.
Thank you. And if we vote for this to pass this strategic plan, that does not mean to me that commissioners can't call up with the very same questions that they already have, like, hey, I want to see the numbers, I want to see some pie charts in the future, let's have more breakdown on departments and things like that. I mean, she works for you all, and I have found that both Shannon and all of the other executive directors have always been very responsive to all of us, you know, when we ask these questions. So, any other commission things? Let us have a roll call then, again.
All right. April Graves?
Aye.
Daryl Sanis?
Aye.
Risica Atasagan?
I will abstain.
Adam Bell?
Aye.
Tracy Camish?
Aye.
Roger Bergman?
Aye.
Maurice Harris?
Aye.
Carol Morris?
Aye.
Mike Ostafi?
Nay.
Beth Kramer?
Abstain.
Shane Michelson?
Aye.
James Willis?
Nay?
Bill, oh, you want to be last? Aaron Wagner?
Yep.
And Bill Blonigan?
Aye, so that motion carries. 11 to 2 to 2.
Yes.
I kept track this time. Okay. Again, contact her with your questions and concerns and data requests. Okay, next item on the agenda is information items, introduction of a new commissioner. Even before we get to that, so thank you all for the discussion that you had and the civility with which you did it. Some of you being on city councils know that there's been modeling behavior by residents that isn't always perfect, and so I would expect you to be civil, but you all are. Thank you. Okay, introduction of a new commission member.
Yes, we have a new commission member. Welcome. You picked a humdinger of a meeting to kick it off. Mayor April Graves will be representing Brooklyn Center moving forward. She is an employee of the city of Minneapolis, and you've been serving as mayor since January 2023, first elected to the council in 2014. So thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
All of the meetings generally aren't this long.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the legislative update.
Yes, and since I knew I would be speaking quite a bit at this meeting, Dave Kaiser is going to take this one for me.
Good morning, everyone, and I'll be very brief, knowing that you have a time schedule to keep on here. Have a few slides to touch on and wanted to mention a little information, a few props to show. We've been down to the Capitol many times for one-on-one meetings, but there was a nice other occasion recently where you see Shannon, a little tough to see, but Shannon is presenting in the rotunda, and this was on behalf of the League of Women Voters. They invited Shannon to come speak, and the League does a great job. We obviously cover a lot of the candidate forums and work with them. They had materials that were prepared for all of their League members to take then to the legislators with specific information about community media, how important we are to them. So thanks to the League of Women Voters, and I think it was a great opportunity for Shannon to stand in the rotunda and hear all of the cheers for community media. So that was a great event to have. Quickly mention the bills and just a little legislative update. The direction of the legislators, also of the MACTA organization, and also of the lobbyists was to key on the first legacy bill ask, and that is what we spent most of our time around this year. Hearings in the House, No hearings in the Senate, unfortunately not in either of the bills. They are now at conference committee, and we are still working hard to get some amendments, some last wording into the conference committee to see if something can be done. We've heard that the full amount cannot be done, the $7.5 million for the state, but we're hoping that some amount can be done. Equal access to broadband, that again was talking about the right-of-ways. That was something that the League of Minnesota Cities was carrying, and we worked with them some on. And a last note, Senator Ann Rest from New Hope introduced a bill regarding social media gross receipts tax. It sounds a little familiar to what we were talking about, a tax related to broadband services. And so Shannon spoke at that hearing, and we're waiting to see if there's more information around that particular item. A few other notes. You might have seen the recent Star Tribune, and on the front page of Variety, in the back, information about community news is under threat, and then it continues on to the back page, and the headline is Cable TV Stations Face a Perilous Future. So if you haven't read that, certainly take a look for that, and we have links as well that we can make available. But reporter came to our studio, and the way the reporter came is through a connection one of our reporters had with that reporter through the Asian Journalists Association. So great to have those connections, and they spent a lot of time talking to us, and also the station up in Itasca, the Grand Rapids area. So not just CCX Media's issue, as you've heard throughout this morning, but this is a statewide issue that is happening.
So will you email to all of us that link, even though maybe you have already? Will you email us that link to that article?
We can certainly do that. Yes, be happy to.
Thank you.
And final note to pass along, as that article was getting ready to come out, we thought we need some easy, straightforward source to be able to tell people what this means and a little bigger picture if they came to our website. So thanks to a partner down in Hastings, the community media station there, they had been working on savecommunitytv.com, a website that just had basic information. The main goal in it was, as you see at the bottom, talk with your legislators, and so it was an easy way for people to connect. So this was put into a banner on our website, and happy to report that many other systems throughout the state have this information on as well, sending people to talk to their legislators to try to continue the work moving ahead. So that is the update. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions? Okay, next item on the agenda, legal and legislative update. Mike Bradley, Bradley Warner LLC.
Good morning. It's good to see all of you. I had a really nice, long legal report that I know you would have really, really loved. But given that we're almost 2 hours into our meeting, I will just send you all to my legal report that's in your packet. I did want to just point out one thing, if I could, and that is you have a bunch of superstars that work for this organization, and I want to talk very briefly about Shannon and Dave's work at the Capitol and with the municipal organization called MACTA. The only reason things are getting done through MACTA and anything going forward at the legislature is really in large part, because of Shannon and Dave. They've been amazing. That newspaper article in the Star Tribune, that doesn't happen without Shannon and Dave. They have been unbelievable advocates, not only for this organization, but for access organizations throughout the country. You're very lucky to have them working here. Secondly, you have an amazing group of professionals that work here. They are unbelievable, and I'm not just talking about the talent that's sitting over there by that curtain, but there's a lot of people behind the curtain that are also unbelievable professionals, and they are such an amazing resource. And I get a little fired up about it because I'm an advocate for municipal governments. I'm an advocate for access organizations. This is an amazing place. And I appreciated the presentation that Al gave. I think one of the things that he said that really rang true with me is we need all of you on this commission and on the CCX board to be engaged, and to be engaged first with your city. And we need to make sure that the League of Minnesota Cities knows that this is and should be a top priority. We do not believe that public rights of way should be given away for free. We believe that it is good public policy to have all providers of the right of way pay consideration to cities for use of that public right of way to provide services to our residents. We have, as an organization, received franchise fee funding and access television funding through one company, really, or one type of company, and that's cable. But we all know that broadband is the future technology. Broadband companies are coming to your cities right now, and they want to use your public right-of-way for free. You shouldn't let it happen, by the way. And you should see me. But we need legislation, and the Equal Access to Broadband Act is that legislation, or at least the start of the conversation for that legislation, so that cities are treated fairly, and that access organizations like this one, which is arguably the best organization in the state, to continue operating. Thank you.
And Mike says that from a perspective of being the attorney for several local metropolitan agencies, statewide agencies, and even national, not agencies, but organizations like us. So he has an opportunity to look nationwide and see how we compare, and we compare very favorably. Next item on the agenda is other. Do you have other?
I would just like to remind executive committee members that we do have an executive committee meeting after this. We'll be going right across the hall, and we'll try to keep it as brief as possible after the CCX Media Board of Directors meeting.
Anybody else have any other that does, you can't go back to what we've already done on other. Anybody have any other? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. We're adjourned.
But not the Board of Directors if we have a quorum to stick around.
So we're going to start the CCX Media Board of Directors meeting at 9:27. I am Vice Chair Darrell Sanis, sitting in for President Mark Schultz, who is not here today. First item is the roll call. That's been taken. We do have a quorum. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I have a couple of changes that we need to make. First of all, under number 4, information items, there is now a number 3 to introduce a new Board of Directors member. And also, number 6, the other, that is being taken out of the agenda, as we talked about at the last meeting. If you have any agenda items that you would like to share, please get those prior to the board meeting so that we can have them put into the agenda and everyone has time to review them. So again, we're adding number 3 to information items, and we're removing the other. Okay, so based on those 2 changes, can I get a approval of the agenda as it states?
Move to.
We don't need a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Number 3, the consent items. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent items listed, the approval of the minutes, the knowledge of the receipt of minutes from the Create Action Committee, and the approval of the Treasurer's Report.
Second.
Any discussion? We'll take a vote. All those in favor of accepting the consent items, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Under number 4, the number 1, the insurance liability waiver. Executive Director Slatton?
Yes, go ahead.
So this is exactly what we did in the commission meeting, for all of you who are here. So I don't know if we need to discuss this again. I would look for a motion to approve the liability waiver as stated.
So moved.
Any other discussion? We'll take a vote. All those in favor of the insurance liability waiver, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Action item number 2, the resolution accepting donations. So I'll turn that to Director Slatton.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair and Board, I am always pleased to talk about donations that we receive, and we had donations coming from 3 different individuals. Alicia Cameron gave 3 times, Fatima Hajitaki gave twice, and we had a nice donation from Pastor Tom Brock, who is one of the producers for the pastor study at CCX Create. So that totals $540. So we would like a resolution accepting these donations.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote on this. All those in favor of accepting these donations, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Action item number 3, the approval of the CCX 2025 strategic plan. So we've already been through this on the commission side, so I'm not exactly sure what we'll do here. So I'll turn it to Director Slatton.
We were hoping for an approval by this body as well, because this body is the one that approves the CCX Media budget. But I also wanted to open it up for any further discussion at the
Okay,
wishes
we
of the
will
Vice Chair.
Open it up for discussion. Director Margolis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know all of you were already part of the discussion, and so really I have a motion that is applicable to adoption of the strategic plan. And I believe, Mr. Chair, I provided you with a document that outlined 7 areas of inquiry with specific questions, which I believe are important in order to understand how we're going to move. So I'm going to, at this time, make a motion that those questions be answered by staff and provided to the CCX Media Board by the date certain of June 12th at 7:30 in the morning, prior to any additional discussion of budgeting or any other work. I think it's important as we navigate that be done. So that's my motion.
Director Weiler? Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say that with the approval of the strategic plan, there is no meeting scheduled for June 12th.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I would like answers by that date. It's the roughly.
Okay, so that's just an arbitrary date that you have determined based on the discussion already this morning.
Correct.
Okay?
It's not arbitrary. I chose
Yes.
June 12th because I think if the staff could provide answers to those questions. Would you mind holding up the document I'm talking about? Because I don't think everybody has seen it. And if you don't have a copy, I'm happy to provide you one. Maybe someone next to you might have it already. And I think that those questions are really what some of the commissioners were looking for answers for. And I think it's appropriate as a board member of this body to request those answers. I don't say that it's all encompassing. Other members may have additional questions, but I took the time to put those together, and I'd like them responded to by June 12th and provided to the CCX Media board members.
Okay, so we have a motion. Any other discussion?
Okay, yeah, so my comments are related to that. After listening to the discussion earlier, I think it would be helpful to, like, as Kevin mentioned, seeing some pie charts or something of where all the expenditures are chunked, like where do they go, and see a matching pie chart that shows where the revenue comes in and where it's chunked, and then look for the discrepancies. One of my big questions that during the interviews that I haven't heard any discussion of here is that it seems like CCX does a fair amount of sports broadcasting, which I'm all for it, I'm a big fan, but that we're not getting any revenue from the schools for that. And I'm wondering why, and if that's part of like one of the holes in our funding. And I feel like that should be addressed. I'm also wondering about the relationship between the people who buy Comcast services. How many of them, I mean, like, what's the relationship between viewership and revenue? So like, you might pay for Comcast, but do you watch CCX? We're getting the revenue from that regardless. But like all of the people who are watching CCX, what are they watching? And does that relate to revenue? And how do you match that up to know what to cut and what not to cut? I mean, I know that the sports programming is very, very popular, but if we're not getting any revenue from that, and the revenue is mostly coming from cities, we should take that into consideration before we cut city services or ask the cities to pay more. Wouldn't we be asking the schools to pay more or anything? So those are some of the numbers I would like to see. That would be really helpful in making a decision about, like looking at the strategic plan. It's all about where to cut, what services to keep, what services to not keep, but those numbers would be super helpful in evaluating that.
Okay, Director Sandvik, we'll get to you, Kevin.
Thank you. I guess that maybe a point of inquiry or two. I did not receive a list of your questions, so I would be more comfortable to vote with a review.
Here, you can.
Thank you. And thank you. Second question, and maybe for Shannon, my understanding is if there's outstanding information, whether individually or collectively, folks can reach out directly to staff. If that's maybe a more appropriate way to go forward, certainly in the meantime, on this item or otherwise, if we could provide that clarification, I think maybe would be helpful to move along the approval of this item.
Absolutely. Questions are always appreciated, but I will be putting something together and getting it out to everybody.
Any others? Okay, yes.
Yeah, just similarly, I think some statements were made in the commission meeting about waste of time. And while of course I agree, we don't want to waste anyone's time, I think collectively maybe having visibility to the list of questions or as if they're FAQs so that we're all not asking you the same thing or flavors of the same thing. We don't want to waste your time certainly to do that. And I will agree with Cheryl. I'm just trying as a board member to confirm in my mind that this makes sense. That's all I'm looking for. And it's not out of lack of trust. For me, it's more about due diligence, right? As a board member, I want to be sure that what I'm advocating for is the right thing. And I'm not quite sure. I don't know how much cost allocation is done. I know I come from a business where every task, everything that is done is accounted to a line of business. So everything we do has a P&L individually. I know you're not that detailed, but it would be helpful to kind of understand, this money, this much of the budget goes here, and it breaks down into salaries or committed contracted items. That generic level of thing helps me understand how possible it is to execute this plan and get what we want out of it. Not that anything's a guarantee. So that's the place that I think these questions come from, at least from my perspective. And certainly the details in the budget going forward, we'll have a chance to vote on it, but thank you for listening.
Any? Director Bell?
I was just going to, regarding the June 12th deadline, is that, I guess I would ask the director, is that enough time? That's less than a month. Is that enough time? There's a lot of good questions in here, and I think answering some of the questions will actually be educational for everybody,
Sure.
just to better understand. But Eric's list is, fairly long, so I'm somewhat impressed. Not somewhat. I'm impressed that it's that comprehensive. I appreciate the thoughtfulness of the board. But I just want to make sure that's enough time, or if you need a couple more weeks or.
Sure, and Eric emailed this to me yesterday, and I have already started, so I already have, simple responses to every question on there. So I think that's absolutely possible.
And I just want to say thank you, and thank you for the discussion. But also, I'm not real big on like doling out assignments. Okay, I'm a roll up my sleeves, dive in. You know this to be true,
I do.
right? And as an analytics person, maybe you all don't know this, with experience both in nonprofit work and in municipal work and in the private sector, I'm not just saying, hey, staff, give us these answers. I'm saying, how many hours can I give you? 20, 40, 100 of my time and expertise to help put, stuff together? Because I will do that. That's, I'm happy to do that. I've always offered that. And I think other members on the board probably would be willing to do that as well. Because I do want the answers to be detailed, right? To help understand really the narrative. I believe strongly that data helps sharpen the narrative, right? And the mission. And all of those questions, I think, I tried to embody it in this list, but it's not intended to be all-encompassing. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, since it's been a few minutes now, can I get you to restate your
Indeed.
motion, Director Margolis?
Thank you. I move that the list of questions that has been submitted and provided to Shannon be responded to by June 12th. And I ask that the board members be shared with that information, not just me, it's for everyone. That was my motion.
I would ask, how would you like that information to be shared? Is it to have this board meet, or just via email, or what?
I think whatever is the most convenient, right? I think I'm not asking for a meeting. There seemed to be no desire by a lot of you are on the commission to have another meeting, and I think this is my way of still getting the information and having it sent via email, to everyone, so that it'd be sent out as a communication by June 12th with responses to the questions that would be shared with the board as a whole.
Okay, just after hearing the motion again, any other comments or questions?
Could we please include the document in the minutes, just so that in the meantime we can all see what the questions were? Thank you.
Sure.
Do we need to amend the motion if we're gonna include it in
I'll amend it.
Okay.
So I move that the list of questions have been added to the minutes, and that the staff meet and respond to the questions by June 12th to the board as a whole via email.
All right, I would like to do a roll call for this vote.
We need a second, do we not?
No,
we
we
do not
don't.
need seconds
Okay.
for the board of directors meetings.
Okay.
But do we need to vote on the amendment before voting on
Okay.
the motion?
Because I restated it,
Oh,
there's no
okay.
need for that
Gotcha.
part.
Gotcha.
Okay, I will call for a roll call.
Okay. Joe Cardoza,
Aye.
Risika Atasagan,
Aye.
Adam Bell,
Aye.
Cheryl Weiler,
Aye.
Carol Morris, Beth Kramer, Tim Sandvik,
Aye.
Mike Ostaffi,
Aye.
Daryl Sanis,
Abstain.
Bob Woods,
Aye.
Eric Margolis,
Aye.
and Kevin Vandenberg.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
The motion carries. We will look for a report from staff answering the questions by June 12th.
Thank you. And again, please take my offer of time and hours to the extent that you're comfortable and that it helps.
Okay, we still have the issue of approval of the strategic plan. So I'm looking for a motion to accept or reject.
I make a motion to accept.
Any discussion on accepting the plan?
Chair or acting chair, the vote that I took in the last meeting is going to come over to this meeting. So for the same reasons, I appreciate Eric's motion and that we've accepted that to get the answers. I won't be comfortable voting on, I mean, it's already been approved, but by the commission, but I'm still going to stick with what I've been doing because I would like those answers, before I would make a final decision.
Any other comments? Discussion? Yes.
Is it possible that the plan could be adjusted? I mean, if it's approved as is, and then after people see the numbers, is it possible that some elements of the plan could be adjusted, or is that set?
I don't know.
I
Director?
would think it could.
Any other discussion? Director Bell?
I don't want to belabor the point. One of the reasons that I think it's important to adopt the plan sooner than later is just for the essence of time. I know I'm not 100% completely comfortable with it by any means. I just know as a city manager, I think these things take a lot of time to even get to our city budget. I mean, I struggle and get frustrated with my council not giving clear direction on things. I want to make sure that we're giving Shannon as much a clear direction. I mean, if there's things that we want to say now that, because we are different than the commission, if there's other things that we want to provide direction and guidance on, the sooner the better. I think time is of the essence in trying to get ahead of this as much as possible. Again, this is not a silver bullet by any means. I don't think anybody expects that. I struggle with delaying taking on any type of action towards the next step of trying to solve this problem. So that's it. It's not lost to me that there's a lot of questions.
Mr. Chair?
Just a second. Director Morris?
I echo what Director Bell said. I do still have questions, but in the interest of time and moving things forward, I think Cheryl made some great points about revenue and looking at other revenue streams. I will say, we worked again with CCX on our State of the City video, and when I got the bill, I'm like, that could have been double, and we would have gladly paid it. So if there's some opportunities for I'm sure there's opportunities for increasing revenue. I just had a conversation with Olivia at Wyzetta, and I was thrilled to see that, Wyzetta has contracted with CCX for their services and that sort of thing. So, yeah, if we could just kind of hear more about what those opportunities are. City funding, school districts certainly should be ponying up for all that. If there's something with the athletic associations, because their activities are being recorded and broadcast, so yeah, I've gone back and forth the whole meeting. I'm like, yes, no, yes, no.
Going back, Director Margolis, you had your hand up next.
Yes. So in the previous meeting, I was not a standing member, and I did not get to vote. And much like Member Ostafi, I'm going to be voting no because, to me, I would like to see the answers. And I just wanted to share that it's no reflection on the commitment or the work that's been done and the difficult conversations that have been had. It's not criticism. It's not trust-based. It's solely based on that list of questions to satisfying, I think, what is needed. And it's difficult for me to vote no. That's why I said no to the agenda, just to practice and get it out of the way. But thank you for letting me share that.
Okay, Director Vandenberg?
I'm just calling out upon review at the moment that really this plan, although 12 pages long, I'm assuming what we're voting on are specifically pages 11 and 12, where it only says, cut the budget, striving for 33%. Identify investment liquidity timeline, determine feasible services, etc. Similarly to the generic instruction for generate new revenue, activate advocates, restructure CCX and contingency plan. So that although cuts of certain numbers of 50% of the staff were mentioned as possibilities, that's not what we're approving. Is that correct? What we're approving is try to cut the budget 33%.
Staff cuts would be in the budget. They're not part of this.
Yes.
I think you have to say they're connected. They are absolutely connected. The largest part of our budget is staff. Like, we've cut, we've cut and cut and cut. Yes, yes. So.
Other discussion?
Yeah, following that up, and also what Carol pointed out, getting to a yes vote, we're going to vote on the structure, but not the exact details of the structure, correct?
Right. Much of that we have to investigate and look
Right.
into.
That could
to
change,
be honest with
but
you.
these
We
are,
have to
this is
spend
kind
more
of like a high level look at, here are different ways to do it, not, this is exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah, we got to start going in some direction. Point us in a direction.
Okay.
So this is kind of the direction.
I mean, following up on what Carol said, there are a lot of video production companies in town. I quit taking calls from them years ago because no one can do it as affordably and as well as you can. The State of the City video, we also did a similar thing. It would have easily been 2 or 3 times that, hiring somebody else. And I think there's a lot of potential there. But I think it's going to take some time to look at that, like mix of, you've got assets, you've got staff, people who are trained. Why cut that if there could be other ways to sell it? But that might mean doing other stuff not stopping doing other stuff that isn't bringing revenue in. And if we're at this point and if it's not bringing revenue, and it's kind of like city park and rec departments in Golden Valley, we subsidize youth recreation, but we do not subsidize adult recreation. They pay full freight. And maybe if that's something you already do here. There are some things that are important, perhaps in the create world, that will get subsidized, but other stuff people are going to have to pay full freight for us to survive.
Absolutely.
And thrive.
Yes, and I think that's part of it, is how do we figure out a way to get each one of our sub-brands sustainable?
Yeah.
And what does that look like? And I think the easiest path for us was really city meetings. That's the A to B, right? The other ones I think will be a little trickier, but it's definitely something we have to look at and figure out.
Shannon, as you just said, the main thing you thought about was, working with the cities to get the money. But I would guess that, all of the sports is coming through our school districts, and they're not paying a dime, are they?
They are not.
So, I came up with the numbers on the back of the napkin that showed a couple $100,000 a year, maybe from the cities. But if you're looking at supporting all of the sports that are going on, I think there has to be some serious discussions, not only with the sports, but the board meetings of all of the school districts. If you're going to ask the cities, you're going to have to ask them, because I can see there would be an issue of the city going, well, why aren't they paying? And their budget is a lot higher than ours, and than everyone else in this room combined, probably. So there has to be a significant consideration of getting them on board to pay for the things that they are using, and they're using a significant amount of the resources. So it's not just the cities.
We actually have 2 meetings set up next week, 2 school districts, so
Good.
we're definitely working on that.
Okay. No, and that wasn't in the plan, so I didn't see that, that was one of the issues. It's like you're just going on the backs of the cities, but I don't see anything about the revenue from the sports and potential revenue from the school district. So thank you that letting us know that's occurring.
And I'll also add, just to say, working on it, and this is coming up a little bit later, but we are contracted with the city of Wayzata to do their city meeting services. And this is, there's two parts for this. Number one, yes, it does give us a little bit of revenue, but number two, it lets us figure out how to do this and how to troubleshoot it when we're just dealing with one city instead of 9. So it's a multifaceted reason why we said yes to that contract.
Mr. Chair, I just had a quick question. What impact would it have if we did a no vote with this board versus the aye vote that passed earlier with the commission?
It's a really good question. Really good question. I think we would have to go in some direction, and we would have to start some work on the budget. But it would be noted that this body did reject the strategic plan. Where we go from there, I really don't know.
Director Woods? Thank you, Chairman Simmons. I just think we need to respect the process, right? I think that all the talk about budget, the money itself is very important. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But to Adam's point, we have to trust the staff to get those numbers so we can actually make those decisions. I don't think we're there yet. We've got people in the room right now talking about, how we can save. I think Cheryl's great. We're going to charge Golden Valley more money, apparently, for the services from what she's saying. But the idea that we just don't have the staff hasn't prepared the numbers that we're asking for yet, and I think to drill down and worry about how exactly we're going to cut that right now. Let's let the process work. Let's go to that. Let's approve this. Go work with those guidelines, and we can have the next meeting if you have those budget discussions later on this fall.
Director Margolis, did you have another?
I guess just in closing, because there seems to be, some confusion, and I'm going to assert that this body, the governing body of CCX Media, the entity, the commission's role is to distribute the funds, which they have duly provided to us already. And the governance of this organization falls on the executive director and the staff with the approval and guidance and knowledge and wisdom of this body. So budgeting is going to happen. It's a thing that we know that Shannon and the staff are going to do. Fundamentally, the question is, when that process begins and you go to these strategic goals, the initial one, fallback 2, and sunsetting, are you going to decide that during your internal budgeting? You're going to have to evaluate all of that. There is no way that you could do that. You're not going to bring 4 different budgets forward in the committee or to the executive committee of CCX Media. And so, right, we're basically telling you, when you go in and you do your budgeting, here are the 4 options that you should consider during that budgeting process. Do I have that wrong?
A little bit, because we have an initial goal, and the strategic actions all support the initial goal. The others are if-then scenarios, right. So we can't go after all of them at the same time. We're going after the initial goal, which is keeping all of the departments, and then
reducing
fall
staff.
Back. Yes.
Initial goal, reducing staff. So that just needs to be clear, because there's a lot of no clarity on that. The initial goal is to reduce staff from 25 to 10 to 15.
Yes, and that was all, yes.
That's the initial goal.
Initial
That's
goal.
what we're approving here. When you go in to do your budget, you'll start from that position, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Any more discussion? Okay, I believe we have a motion on the table to accept the strategic plan. So I'd like to take a roll call.
Who made that motion?
I did.
Okay, thank you. All right, roll call. Joe Cardoza?
I think I'm going to take a page out of Mayor Gray's playbook here and say, as this is my first meeting, I'll abstain.
Okay, thank you. Risika Atasagan?
Support the work, also abstaining for today.
Okay. Adam Bell?
Aye.
Cheryl Weiler?
Aye.
Carol Morris? Tim Sandvik?
Aye.
Mike Ostaffi?
Nay.
Daryl Sanis?
Aye.
Bob Woods?
Aye.
Eric Margolis?
Nay.
And Kevin Vandenberg?
Aye.
Okay. The ayes have it, 7, 2 nays, and 2 abstentions.
Okay, so the approval of the strategic plan has been passed. But we do have the questions to Mr. Margoles's discussion guide for June 12th. All right, moving to number 4, information items. First off, we have the Create Action Committee report.
Yes, and I will go quickly through this. The Create Action Committee has been around for a year, and it was established a year ago with the mission of enhancing member engagement, recruitment, and outreach. It has a combination of staff members and volunteers and board members who meet together sometimes bi-weekly. We've gone to monthly meetings just to determine how we can work together to meet that mission. So I wanted to highlight 2 things that the committee has accomplished. First, we've established non-resident membership with the approval of this body. Since this went into effect in January 2025, we have had 4 individuals and 1 family who have signed up for non-resident membership. Because of a change in staffing, we've kind of rolled this out slowly, but we have seen interest in that. And then a Create survey was launched at the beginning of this year, and this was a survey created by volunteers for volunteers. Staff just really facilitated it, so we got some great feedback as far as facility use, training, recruitment, and engagement. So we had 18 responses, 16 from members and 2 from volunteers. So I included the full survey result report in your packet so you can read and learn more.
So do we have to pass?
Don't have to approve it.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Any
Yep.
discussion or comment?
I just would like to say thank you again to Shannon and to the staff. Shannon, is an active member of that committee on top of everything else that she has to do to keep the organization running. And it just means she has to spend more time with me in a room than the rest of you. So she's definitely done an excellent job. And I am very grateful for her leadership and for the work there and the work of the committee. So thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
All right. Before we get to staff reports, I'd like to maybe just jump ahead and introduce our new director.
Yes, we have Joe Cardoza, who also picked the longest meeting of the history of this organization to be his first meeting. So thank you, Joe, for being here. He is communications manager for the city of Brooklyn Center. This is a seat that's been vacant for a while, so we're glad to have Brooklyn Center back at the table. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, staff reports.
In the interest of time, Mr. Vice Chair, we've put together a nice couple-page document on staff reports, and I would just like to encourage you all to read it, and maybe I will skip the oral presentation.
Well, I would just like to congratulate CCX and its team for all the awards that they've received.
Yes.
So they're well deserved.
We do
Congratulations.
have them out on the table, so please check them out as you go by.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. We're adjourned. 10:03.